Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank, coming to you virtually from Seattle and the great PNW. If you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here is the podcast for you, the podcast of record. It's where street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and my co-host today is the inimitable Craig Swanson. Craig, I had to practice inimitable quite a bit. Our guest today is Mikelann Valterra. Mikelann is an author, keynote speaker, and money coach who helps women transform their relationship with money to create a life that they love. For over 20 years, she's been a thought leader in the field of financial psychology. Her strong background in emotional intelligence paired with her practical money strategies enable her clients to consciously design their life while escaping financial stress and anxiety. Craig, I know we can't wait to learn more. Welcome, Mikelann. We'll be with you in just a minute. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube. I like to say that we're ubiquitous. We come to you from about a dozen cities, including the mothership in Atlanta, Boston, Boca Raton, whole bunch of cities. We like to think of ourselves as the West Coast operative. Now, before we bring on Mikelann, Craig, hello there.
Hello, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I hope you're doing well too. Heading pell-mell into fourth quarter. And you know, it's interesting, as I was doing some research on our guest today, the term money personality came up, and I realized I probably should try to figure out what my money personality is. And I think I've come up with it, Craig.
Okay.
I like to
I'm interested.
I like to spend money, and I like to spend money on things like, I don't know, golf. So I like to spend money. I bought this year so far. I have a new golf bag. It's really cool. It's a cart bag. And of course, I had to have a new push cart so that I can push the golf bag. I have a new gap wedge, which won't mean anything to anybody else probably, but I have a new one of those. I have some new summer golf shoes. See, I have regular, the dress shoes I have are just dress shoes, but I have summer golf shoes. And then I stopped counting because I think I've spent a lot of money on golf. So my money personality, I think, is spending money on golf. Do you have a money personality, Craig?
All right. So this is how we're defining personality. I was thinking about this. Okay. So for me, I mean, the big thing, if there's a big thing we spend money on, it is travel periodically. So basically, let's call me like frugal, and then splurge like crazy on a big trip.
You binge, so like it's a binge thing.
It's a binge thing, and it's a little bit tough now when there's 4 of us in the family. We can't all upgrade to first class quite, but basically binging on being comfortable in the flight, on where we're going, and just enjoying it, and then dialing it back until the next big trip. So I'm a binge travel money personality type. I'm sure these are formal personality types for money.
I gotta believe they're somewhere on the spectrum. Okay, somewhere on the spectrum of it. But thank goodness we have an expert. Mikelann Valterra, welcome. First of all, welcome to the show. You probably have some work to do with us. We are probably somewhat challenged. Let's bring the whole concept of money personality up front and center. Tell us, number one, how probably damaged we are, and then make sure everybody knows what you do and how money personality plays a part of that.
Oh my gosh, how fun. Well, welcome from Seattle, everyone. Yeah, so I'm Mikelann. I'm a money coach. I'll say at the outset, a lot of people, Dan, have never heard of the term money coach. So, I work with people on their relationship to money, right? Part of it's practical, part of it's emotional. We'll probably get into all sorts of stuff as we talk today. But the whole idea of money personality, no, you're both okay. You're both okay. And we'll have to look up what a gap wedge is for
happy to help you with
yeah, I'm
that.
sure you are, right? Yeah. So a fun way to think about money personality is what motivates you around money. What motivates you around money? And so, if your listeners are going, okay, wait a minute, money personality, what's my money personality? What I would say is, if you answer the question, what's the point of having money? Or why is money important to you? People will give a million different answers, like Craig saying travel. You're saying golf. Some people say retirement, braces for my kids, not ever having to worry. There are so many answers to why is money important to you. But, believe it or not, almost every answer really distills down into like 4 things that motivate us around money. We're motivated by freedom, security, power, or love. And, we're complicated people. Obviously, we're simplifying this a little bit here, but like Dan, all the golf stuff, that is what someone says is really motivated by freedom. I want to do what I want, when I want, how I want, right? And freedom-oriented personality, money types tend to be self-employed. They tend to not want to be on someone else's time clock. They tend to not be like, yay, budgets. They're very, it's about freedom, right? Whether it's now or in the future, versus a saver personality type is, well, they're more excited about budgeting, right? But it's also about, I want to feel secure. I really get off on knowing that there's a stable roof over my head. I got a steady paycheck. I don't want to worry about money going up and down and being erratic. They tend to not be self-employed as often, or really look at how to create stability in self-employment, right? And Craig, I think you were an interesting combo, right? Because I think that you're probably a combo of that freedom, security, and we tend to flip in the middle of our lives more towards, if you are super freedom oriented your whole life, in your mid 40s, you start wanting a little bit more of the other, more security. And flip is, if you're, super security your whole life, mid 40s, early 50s, you're like, I want a little more freedom, right? So it's fun, but some people are very motivated by power. It's not what so much money, it's what you can do with money, your vision moving forward. And a lot of the guests that you've had on the podcast, Dan, I would say have a very strong power motivation. And it's, if you had Mother Teresa on the program, she would score off the chart as her motivation is power, because it's getting her vision moved forward in the world. It's not,
it's not over. Yeah, it's not necessarily power in a manipulative way.
Exactly. It's not power over other people. It's, I have a vision. It could be, all your wonderful business people. My vision could be anything. It could be a philanthropic nonprofit, but it's what you can do with money that motivates those types. And then, that last one is, some listeners, when they said, well, why is money important? And Craig, this might be, I suspect, a little piece for you. It's for my family. It's to give to my children. It's to give away. It's to help other people, right? And that can come out in a lot of different ways. But like, I can just tell you really love being able to take your family on these scrumptious places. That's like you giving money out of love. So it's a neat piece of the personality puzzle.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And I'm actually thinking about my own dynamic with my wife around this, and just where we came from respectively around money. And I have to imagine that money really comes into play. Like, my relationship with money and my wife's relationship, money has to really frame a lot of framework for our relationship with each other. Is that something that comes up in coaching?
Oh, Lord, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the short story is opposites attract, right? So, sometimes when people talk about money personality types, you'll hear people just the kind of shorthand would be, are you a spender or a saver, right? Which is a little simplistic, but spenders tend to be motivated by the freedom. Savers tend to be motivated by security. But when it comes to romance, about half of all relationships are made up of a spender marrying a saver, meaning I'm motivated by freedom, you're motivated by security. But what's interesting is, when couples first get together, it has nothing to do with money. right? It's, oh my gosh, he's so secure, and I feel so safe, and it feels so good, and oh, she's so vivacious, and I've never had so much fun at the spur of the moment, right? So there's a lot of juice. It's a really wonderful attraction pattern, but then money comes up, right? And couples end up starting to kind of rub the wrong way against each other. The more he spends, the more I'm like, oh, I better save. Well, then the more I save, the more like, well, you can't tell me what to do with my money. I'm going to spend. I'm going to buy all the golf stuff I want to show that I can, right? I mean, again, it's not all conscious, but couples react to each other the longer they're married, if they're in that half of all couples that have those kind of opposite types. And it's not a bad thing, but you can see why there's so much drama around couples and money.
Well, and you talk
Actually,
about,
and
oh, go ahead.
and I'm
Craig.
sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but I had a follow up on that. Because I was also thinking with my own wife, like she was raised very frugal, and yet when we had kids and when there are family expenses, she can seemingly not spend enough on family expenses and giving back to certain events, yet just doesn't spend anything on things that don't need to be spent money on, so frugal, and then extremely pushing for like investing in everything around the family. And so like this helps me understand that.
Well, and what's cool about the conversation for couples is to be able to talk about what's really underneath it. It sounds like she's motivated by that combination of love and security. And, the other piece you brought up, how she was raised. I mean, apart from many personalities, we are very impacted by how we're raised around money. And we tend to either reenact what we witnessed, or we rebel and we do the exact opposite. But it's rarely kind of down the lukewarm middle, right? So when people are not raised with, they're raised with a lot of deprivation, let's say, which is not necessarily what you're saying, but if someone was raised with very, very, very little money, it does very interesting things to us as an adult, right? We tend to either continue to not spend on our needs, even though we've got the money, but we keep almost self-depriving out of almost a programmed habit. Or many times adults will go the opposite. If they're raised with not a lot of money as adults, they will spend to prove to themselves that they're okay, right? So, I mean, the psychology around this is it's really interesting when you start kind of unpacking it.
So speaking of the psychology part, which I think is just fascinating, I know that you primarily work with women. I think you mentioned to me before the show, 95% you're working with women. And I think that you've seen on television shows and movies over the years, sometimes a stereotypical thing of men and women and money. But I've got to think it's more really about personality style that, you just talked about because I am an entrepreneur, but there are women entrepreneurs as well who probably would spend the same money as I would on the way I do or otherwise. So really, when you're talking about, especially working with different genders, is there a gender thing, or is it more really based on, as you just said, how you were raised and how you're wired?
That's a complicated question, but I'll say this: women are no more likely to be quote spenders than men are, and women are no more likely to be savers than men are, because it's just part of our money personality. It's 50-50. It comes out different. Women often get portrayed in the media as spenders because women are the ones that often are tasked with buying a lot of the consumer goods for the household. So we appear to be more of the spenders. But personality wise, we're no more spender or savers than men are. So Dan, you're totally right. It's more about how we were raised. Now, having said that, there are differences between men and women. Women are, as we all know, very intensely relational. So the places where our money goes can be different, right? Not that men can't spend lavishly on their children as well. But, you have so many wonderful women on the show that are entrepreneurs. And so it's interesting how the female brain in entrepreneurship goes. We create the web of relationships as opposed to the top-down leadership. I mean, there's a lot of research on this, that the different strengths that men and women bring into being small business owners. So, but yeah, there is a lot here.
Well, there's so much more many questions we have, but we're going to take a very quick break, Michael, and we got to pay the bills. Speaking of money, I guess. So we're going to take that short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Mikelann Valterra, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to talk about dancing. I can't wait to hear more about this. You won't want to either, so don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And I'm doubling again as producer, I think maybe for the last week. So let's hear from our spotlight sponsor. EO Accelerator is a coaching program for Seattle area business owners who want to grow their existing small businesses beyond $1 million in annual revenue. As a small business owner, you face new challenges every day, whether it's deciding how you're going to fill a rush of new orders, puzzling out where to find new customers, or sweating about making payroll. Do you find yourself wishing you had an instruction manual for your business? At EO Accelerator, our mission is to empower entrepreneurs with the tools, accountability, and community to aggressively grow and master their business. This is more than theory. This is entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs, with top Seattle business leaders who have been where you are, volunteering as coaches and mentors in the Accelerator program. Because the hustle will only get you so far, the next level of success is a team sport. Want to hit $1 million in revenue? Join the club.
All right. So welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and the brightest CEOs and business thought leaders from Seattle. Our guest today is Mikelann Valterra for our next segment, Hot or Not.
Well, Mikelann, this is where, and I know you've listened to the podcast, this is where Craig and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about life, about money, and maybe about some other fun things. And you're going to tell us if it's hot or not, and why or why not. So I did a little research on you, and I found out that the Argentine tango might be hot for you. So please confirm, hot or not, the Argentine tango.
It's hot. Yeah.
It's if I
am not coaching women by day on how to get clear with money, I am dancing by night. Argentine tango for sure.
So tell us how did that fall into your world?
You know, I love the Carl Jung's theory of synchronicities. When something keeps coming up in different parts of your life. I was dating a guy at the time who had taken dance lessons. I'm like, ooh, what's that? You know, I read about it, I heard about it. It just kept coming up. And I got online in Seattle and said, who's teaching Argentine tango? I did a weekend boot camp with this, wonderful teacher here. And the rest, as they say, is history. And so I've been dancing for years now, and social dancing. I'm going to compete in April at the National Tango Championship, which is just so fun. So, and I love it. I mean, I love helping my clients find the money so that they can fund their hobbies, right? I mean, this is the point, right? We want to make enough money and be clean and clear enough with money that we can fund what our passions are, and mine's tango.
All right. Well, I've got a money question for hot or not. Hot or not, being a high revenue earner?
Hot. We like being, money's really fun. You can do a lot of cool things with money. Although I will say this, just because people make a lot of revenue doesn't mean they have a lot of net worth. So, are you keeping what you're making? Are you making it count? Are you feeling good about your future? You can have a really high revenue, but if you blow it all out your, then it doesn't really matter. So make it count so that you can enjoy your life.
All right. Hot or not, online courses.
Online courses. Yeah, everyone and their mother is both offering and teaching an online course. I have taught and teach online courses. Everyone's taking it. I mean, coming out of the pandemic, what I find is they're here to stay. There's a lot of money to be made in teaching them and taking them, but people are really dying right now to get back to some of the one-on-one. You're starting to see the large retreats and seminars coming back with actual live people.
I'm going to do a hot or not, just kind of based on your last answer, which is hot or not. What's hotter, revenue or net worth?
Net worth. I mean, there you go, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter if you make $1 million a year, if you spend $1 million a year, I mean, the question is, what do you want? If you want to someday be work optional and be able to do what you want when you want, it would be nice to have some savings. And honestly, it's one of the biggest stresses for women is it's called the wealth gap. Men have about double the amount that women have for retirement. And while I don't do investments, I do a lot to help people grow their net worth and all that good stuff. It's a gap. It's a gap. And so I want to help women have more now in terms of making more now, but also how about we keep some of it?
All right. So, that probably begs the question. I'm going to sidestep hot or not. Somebody listening to this says, oh, she's smart. I want to talk with her. I want to learn from her. How does your practice work? Kind of walk us through somebody maybe hearing you on this podcast and reaching out and saying, okay, Mikelann, I want to learn more. How does your practice work?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I've been a money coach for 25 years, but a lot of people still don't know what money coaching is, right? It used to be people could either work with a financial planner on investments or a credit counselor on debt, but neither of these fields could deal with really the emotional side of money. And most people need both, right? So when you work with me and money coaches in general, we're working on the practical side and the emotional side. So the practical side is I teach people how to manage their cash flow. I dislike the word budget, Dan, because it sounds like a diet to a lot of people, particularly the freedom-oriented personality types. I don't want to live like on a diet of money, but I'm a big advocate of getting really clear. And so I teach people how to get out of a money fog, and then how to create a nourishing spending plan so that you decide where you want your money to go in alignment with your values. And so part of that is, we want to make sure that you're earning the money that you deserve to earn, for sure. That's a piece of the conversation. And then we want to get clear about where's it going. So many people are in a money fog and they're just stressed and anxious. The number one thing I hear when people call me is they are tired of feeling out of control around money. And the number two thing I hear is they're tired of feeling stressed and anxious about money. So how do we get out of the money fog and really design that really lovely spending plan so you're never stressed? And, you want to know that you can afford to go to Hawaii. You want to know that what you can afford to do, whether it's investing in your business or wardrobe or whatever. And you want to know that you are putting money into retirement for the future. So if people are curious about all that, the Seattle Money Coach, I've got clients all over the world, but it is, as my mother would say, it's high and holy work. It's intense, right? It's pretty life-changing.
And I was just thinking about those energies you're describing. I imagine there's a balance that people have to find for themselves between kind of this denial phase that we can get into of not looking at the money, or of hyper focusing and just looking at the money way too much. Like how, I mean, is there a balance that is universal, or does each person have to find their own balance?
Craig, I love that you asked that question, because I think that some personality types are so afraid to work with someone on money because they're afraid they're going to have to track every penny, and it is different for different personality types. I mean, there are times when I'm like, what is the goal? What are we trying to see? Some personality types really want, extreme detail. Other personality types want less detail. And so part of a coach is trying to figure out, for you, what is the right level of detail and what are your goals, and so it is a little bit different for different people. I think universally though, people want to feel less stress and they just want to feel more peace around money. Nobody wants to think about money all the time. It's just a tool, right? And yet people actually think about money all the time. I feel like the more clear you are around your money, the less you think about it.
So, I want to now go back a little bit, because in the first part, we talked about relationships and couples. So in your work, and again, I know that you work mostly with women, but are you working with couples to figure out their personal budget? How does that work within your practice?
Yeah, so I have worked with many couples over the years. I've worked with lovely men over the years, lovely women over the years. It just depends on where I'm in my practice. I specialize at this point in my career with professional women in midlife. That's my niche, right? It's like right there, professional women in midlife, which is still pretty large, right? That's still a pretty big segment. So, but I love working with couples when I have spots for them. I don't currently have spots for couples, but couples are fun because they are different from each other. And so they bring a lot in, and trying to figure out, for them, what is their goal, right? And some of it oftentimes is around communication, around money, trying to get on the same page around money, because they are, different. When you're working with individuals, it's very much about what's your vision for your life and how do we create the life that you most want. And of course, the three of us know most people are partnered. So where is that? I've got a lot of clients that are partnered, and I may work with the two of them, or I may only work with her. It just depends on the situation.
I'm thinking about that phrase, the life you most want. And I was thinking about the differences between needs and wants, like being clear on what I need and what I want and how to navigate that as a couple. How do you view needs versus wants when it comes to coaching around money?
Oh my gosh, she's been on my website. That is such a core issue in money coaching. It is a core issue of needs and wants, and sorting and discerning. One of the very first exercises I have clients do literally is brainstorm everything they need and everything they want. And then the conversation is, what's the difference? My need is your want, and vice versa. My very first money coach, Karen McCall, kind of the pioneer in my industry, was fond of saying, you can never get enough of what you don't really need, right? It's like we chase needs, and we're not clear. We spend we throw a lot of money at our wants because we're not clear what the underlying need really is. And so when you clarify, what is it really about? Is it really about the fact, I just wrote a blog post on this, is it really about the fact that you want these stunning, expensive rhinestone earrings and wardrobe? Or what's this really about? Is it about you want to feel more attractive? Is it about wanting to date? Is it about wanting to be seen? What is it really about? So needs and wants is a huge issue in getting clear about money.
I think I love that phrase. I just want to capture that, make sure I got it right. You can never get enough of what you don't really want. So if I'm not clear on what I want in my life, and I'm chasing something I think will give it to me, but it doesn't really give it to me, like the emotional response. I
never get enough of what you don't really need.
Don't really need. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I love that. I just wanted to pick that up.
If you're not addressing the real need, you're just going to keep shoveling money at it. If you don't stop and go, what is this really about? Like Dan, it's fun to think about the golf stuff, because I've got a lot of clients that play golf too, and all sorts of different hobbies that can really get into spending money on equipment. And the question is, what's it really about? And I asked one gal who's playing golf, well, what's this really about? And as we were processing it, she said, I'll tell you what it's really about. I'm too busy at work. And the only time I have time to myself or out of my office is when I play golf. And I need to address the real issue. The real need is I need more personal time. It wasn't really about what she was spending money on. Not that I don't love all your golf equipment and the gap wedge. What's it really about?
Yeah, you probably can see. She'll probably also at some point say, I also want to score better. I also want to have a lower score. And what she might be competitive, right? And so
exactly. Drive for excellence. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But just to
stop. But that was
and go,
really
what
interesting.
Is this really about?
Yeah.
Is because if the drive is, what's it really about is I want to do really well in the next tournament and I need good equipment, name it, claim it.
Yep.
you know,
Be
but
honest
really
about it.
get clear about what's the core here.
So before we head to break, I want to get this one in just really quickly because, coaching, and I don't care what type of coaching we do, at some point we're building skills for people, right? And at some time we kick them out of the nest. How long does your coaching usually go? Does it turn into more of a guide later on as you gotten people really comfortable with that? Talk about the lifespan of your coaching.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I work with people really intensively for the first year, right? In fact, really intensively for the first 3 months, if we really want to get down to brass tacks, right? Like we'll get together every week for the first 3 months, and then we'll start meeting less and less often. It's so give a man a fishing pole, that whole thing. So in subsequent subsequent years, I'm almost like the family doctor. My clients love to check in with me, right? I refer to a lot of different financial professionals. Someone said that money coaches are the priests of the new millennium. We're one of the few professionals that truly know everything about every single nook and cranny of your life. So eventually my clients will see me once a quarter to work exclusively at the level of their annual plan, their annual income and spending plan. In fact, I've got a couple clients, I literally see them twice a year just to look at that annual income and spending plan, because they want that second pair of eyes to talk about their dreams and goals in their life.
I think that's so important. And I think that's so important because we can do a ton of work and improve ourselves, but if then we just kind of stop, it's easy to lose track. And I think that's really important. What's also important is as we talk about our corporate sponsors, we're going to take a short break to hear from them. And when we come back with our guest, Mikelann Valterra, for our Plead the Fifth section of the show, I'm going to ask Mikelann about her guilty pleasures. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, the Kitsap Sun Newspaper Group, BC Fitness Studio, and the Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpod. Let me try that again. www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now, back to the show.
All right. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest thought leaders in the greater Seattle area. I'm Craig Swanson, and our guest today is Mikelann Valterra for our next section, Hot or Not.
No, we're actually going to do Plead the Fifth.
No, it's not. Plead the Fifth.
We're going to do Plead the Fifth. I promise you, Mikelann, we're going to do Plead the Fifth. We're going to turn up the heat on you. You get to plead the fifth once, and I have a feeling you're not a plead the fifth kind of gal. But if it happens, you can do it once, and that's it. So we're talking guilty. We're talking guilty pleasures. Mikelann, I got to believe that you have a golf or a travel in you, that there's something that you've had to somehow discipline yourself on as the money expert, and it makes it even harder. I'm going to call it the guilty pleasure. Mikelann, Plead the Fifth. What's your guilty pleasure?
Oh, that's so easy. Tango shoes.
Oh, Tango shoes.
They are bloody expensive, and I love them. And you have to have them so I can justify it. But do I need that many? So yes, there you go.
So are they like, I have summer golf shoes. Are there different Tango shoes for different occasions?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they got to go with all my outfits, number one.
Oh, okay.
But it also depends on the floor that I'm on. And they're technical sports shoe, right? I mean, they're a steel shank, very rarely made in the United States. Like, I'm dancing in 3-inch heels, gentlemen. I need good official Tango shoes. They are several $100s. So how many do I need? There's the guilty pleasure.
Well, I guess I've got to ask the obvious follow-up question on that. How many do you have?
Oh, I'm pleading the fifth.
There comes the Plead the Fifth. Craig, that was a great one. I didn't think we'd get that Plead the Fifth out, but that was awesome.
I used it.
Yep. I'm going to let you go next, Craig. Ask the next one then. You earned it.
I'll bring it back a little bit, like to the topic, but I've got kids leaving the family. What advice do you give to moms to give to their daughters about money stepping out into early adulthood? Is there any piece that really frames a woman's future relationship with money that you can get to her young?
Oh boy, that's a good one. For moms with daughters, I think the biggie is earning what you're worth. Is really having her look at when she's going into her jobs, negotiating, asking for what she's worth, and really bringing in the tribe, because women don't do well when they set their fees or salary without, basically, in isolation. We tend to undersell ourselves if we're not bringing in our support team. So looking at the research, talking to their moms, talking to all of the people that truly support them, because we want these young women going in as high as they can, because it affects your career. It just does.
So speaking of young women, you're going to jump in the DeLorean, you're going to go back in time, and you're going to find an 18-year-old Mikelann. What advice? You have 10 seconds. You're not going to alter necessarily any of the future like Marty McFly did, but you have a couple minutes to give some advice to an 18-year-old self. What would it be?
Oh my God. Save for grad school. You don't know you're going, but you will, and you'll be glad to not take out that student loan.
That's an awesome one. I like that.
That sounds like there is a life story attached to that one.
Oh, we all have our life story around student loans, right? Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it back a little bit more on the guilty pleasure side. What's your most recent binge watch?
Most recent binge watch. Oh God. Oh, I'm so bad with that. Probably Sandman. I'm kind of the sci-fi. Probably. I mean, I could rewatch The Matrix over and over and over. So anything, and I'm that weird woman. I'm the sci-fi gal.
All right. So now I'm interested now, maybe based on that, to hear this answer. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be, and what would you ask them?
Oh, good Lord, that's a hard one. I have always been curious about having dinner. This is a weird answer, but with Abraham Lincoln. That man was so torn up emotionally over so many things. Now that we know so much more, I want to know what he was really thinking about stuff leading up to the Civil War. And I'm dying to know what was up with his wife. She had major mental health issues that were suppressed at the time. And he's an interesting character. Yep. He is a very interesting character.
That is fascinating. I complete side note, I was listening to a report that said historically leaders with some relationship with some mental health challenges lead best in times of crisis versus other times. And so you look at like major times of crisis, a lot of times the greatest leaders have a personal relationship with mental health that they have dealt with.
Oh, and that's so Lincoln. Yeah, for sure. That's interesting. That's so interesting. Yeah, he actually said somewhere that he wanted to make sure that he never carried a knife on him because he knew that he was prone to basically suicide, and like, God forbid that moment come and he had a knife on him, so yeah, all these interesting leaders, would be great to have dinner with them if we could actually get them to tell us what was really going on, right? Yeah.
I don't know if that counted as my question, but the question I was going to ask is what's the biggest mistake you personally made with money? And you don't have a plead the fifth left.
Yeah, I don't have to plead the fifth left. What is my biggest mistake? I That is a great question because boy, do we have them. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been in business 25 years, right? So I think that, I've had some big business failures, digital courses that didn't go well. I did a seminar one time. I tried to form a seminar company and I made 20,000 and it cost me 25,000, so there's plenty of business failures. The student loan, I wish I knew then what I knew now. I mean, because it was so hard when I went into my divorce, having the student loan that, we then had to get rid of. So those would definitely be some of them. I wish I could have bought my home earlier than I did. I'm super proud of buying it after my divorce. But you know what? I could never convince my then now ex-husband to buy a house.
So I'm waving off Craig because before you go and ask her for her contact information, I have one more question I want to sneak in under the tag, and then you can ask. That brings up a thought. A lot. I mean, this show is based on entrepreneurs, and as you mentioned earlier, kind of the go-to mode is, hey, we're going, and we're taking the risk, right? No risk it, no biscuit type of a mentality. If you were to advise entrepreneurs of any gender on, risk versus reward and money, is there one type of advice that you'd give to those of us who tend to go ready, fire, aim?
I work with a lot of small business owners. I've got a lot of clients, for example, that are everything from psychotherapists in private practice to lawyers to whatnot. And don't be afraid of looking at the money. I mean, I have my small business owners track some of their own money. We tend to want to outsource it, right? And then most small business owners don't actually know how much money they truly need to make. So befriending money and not being afraid of looking at what you need to make really ups your odds of success in a huge way.
That is great. So, Mikelann, thank you so much for being a guest today on the Shrimp Tank. For our listeners that are fascinated, that would like to get in touch with you or learn more about what you can do, or maybe be working with you, how do they get a hold of you? Where do they find you?
They go to seattlemoneycoach.com. And what I did, Craig, is on my website, Seattle Money Coach, there is an ebook that I put together on the 7 steps to stop stressing about money. How do you stop stressing about money? So they can download that ebook for free at Seattle Money Coach, or I send out a once a month newsletter. It's all right there if they want a little more guidance and inspiration around, designing a life you love. And then you can find me in pretty much everywhere in social media, not TikTok yet, but business, Facebook and Instagram, everything's under Seattle Money Coach.
Fantastic. And with your tango background, you might be perfectly positioned for TikTok.
I've had people ask me that. I have a lot of clients. I'll send out pictures of me dancing and in my tango attire and all that stuff in my newsletter, but people keep asking for the video. So
yeah, the money tango, there could be a whole TikTok feed there.
The dancing money coach. Well, that's the thing. I'm working on a book called Love, Money, and Tango, right? Which is kind of the money coach tell-alls, and it'll have more tango interspersed with the money story.
All right. Thank you so much. I got to get back on track because Dan's going to come here and tell me to get back to the script if I don't. Make sure all of you out there are checking the replays at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. And wherever you go to get your podcast, iHeart, Apple, Google, I like Overcast, leave us a review. Go hit 5 stars. Just help pass this around. And follow us on our social media pages, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Mikelann, I got an idea for you. I know how you get on TikTok. You don't get on TikTok. Your shoes set up an account. I think if your Argentinian tango shoes had an account, that's it. It could blow up and maybe you have a side hustle. Who knows? Thank you.
I will credit you with that idea when I launch that.
Thank you for joining us. We had a great time. Fascinated. I have to have you back later on. It was fantastic. Craig, as always, thank you. Everybody, do exactly what Craig said. Like us on Facebook. That way you can live stream us every Wednesday at noon Pacific time. Our next show will be Wednesday, October the 12th. Our guest will be Lisa Mayfield from Aging Wisdom. This is a really interesting one for any of you who have parents that are starting to age and have questions about that. Lisa will be on our show next week. The co-host will be Linda Popke. In the meantime, please be safe, be well, and be prosperous, and watch that net revenue, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.